There's a lot of fiqh and theology to be derived from Hudaybiyah, so I have to go into these tangents. Now back to Hudaybiyah. Where were we? Okay, so Sohail comes. Before we even move on, who is Sohail? And what is the story of Sohail? So Sohail, well, firstly, he is the highest level delegate sent in Hudaybiyah. Everybody else is relatively low level, and Sohail is the highest level that has been sent, and he is one of those who's a member of the Nadi. Basically, he's an MP, he's a member of the parliament. You know, the Quraysh, they had their Nadi, they had their little, group of leaders and whatnot. Sohail is a member of that little clique, that little group. So clearly this is a politician coming now. Not one of these emissaries, not some messenger. This is a man who has been delegated with authority. Sohail Ibn Amar. And Sohail Ibn Amar is one of the high profile members of the Quraysh. And remember that at the Battle of Badr, when Sohail was a prisoner of war, because the fact of the matter is we do have quite a lot of Muslims, they have this black and white view that anybody who's a kafir has got to be evil to the core. And this is simply false from the seerah and from a human psychological point of view. Every one of us interacts with non-Muslims. They're honest, they're upright, they're generous, they're kind. Some of them would defend our rights and their rights, even if it meant at a great expense. Some of them would even die fighting for a noble cause. And this is a reality you cannot deny. Anybody who lives amongst non-Muslims, only those who have no clue, they can spout this radical black and white worldview. Here we have Sohail, that no doubt he is a kafir at this point in time, yet deep down inside him there's a kernel of good. And Sohail was an enemy of Allah and His Messenger at this point in time. In fact, he participated in Badr and in Uhud and in Khandaq, yani all of the major battles. And perhaps the only person more senior to him was Abu Sufyan in terms of actual nobility, yet deep down inside there was some good in him. And the Prophet ﷺ recognized this, Umar did not. Umar did not recognize this. The Prophet ﷺ recognized that, look, despite all of his bad, and by the way, so imagine what must he have said, which the books of Seerah don't record, that got Umar so angry. What happened with Sohail? What was this prediction? Well, Sohail converted at the conquest. He was of those who converted at the end. And so there is no doubt that overall, the status of Sohail is not the status of Abu Bakr and Umar. It's not the status of the early converts. It's not the status of the Muhajirun. Sohail is not a Muhajir. Sohail and his group, they converted the very last batch. And Allah says in the Quran, not equal are those who converted before the conquest versus those who converted after the conquest. And Sohail converted after the conquest, right? Yet, the books of Seerah mention and the books of history mention that out of all of the converts who converted after the conquest, the most worship-minded was Sohail. The most salah, the most fasting, the most zakah was Sohail. And when the Prophet ﷺ died, Sohail was still in Mecca, and the people of Mecca, by and large, were all converts at the conquest of Mecca. Remember, the Muhajirun had to go back to Medina, right? We'll get there, but you already know this. None of the Muhajirs was allowed to live in Mecca. You already know this. They had to go back to Medina. So who's living in Mecca? It's all the people who converted a year and a half ago. You have the Abu Sufyans, you have the Suhails, you have all of these people, right? And so many of them flirted with the idea of leaving. Khalas, the Prophet is dead, let's go back to our old ways. So much so that the Sahabi, the governor that the Prophet appointed to be the ruler of Mecca, he feared for his life. And he went into hiding because commotions began. And mobs began gathering, and the news of the Prophet's death was a traumatic time. And this governor, he felt that they're going to come and kill me, so he went into hiding. Who's the one who calmed them down? Sohail ibn Amar. Sohail ibn Amar stood in front of the Kaaba, and he gave them a fiery lecture. Khatib al-Quraysh. And he warned them and admonished them. And he said to them of the sentence that has been recorded, O people of Mecca, look at how eloquent this phrase is. Do not be the last group to convert and the first group to renegade and apostatize. How beautiful is this, right? You already have the dishonor of being the last group to convert. Now you want to add to this on your resume, the first group to leave Islam. And he played a major role in bringing them back to their senses. And he was the one who brought the governor out of his hiding and then basically reinstated him. And it is also mentioned that when they visited Umar in the Khilafah of Umar, that Sohail and Abu Sufyan and others, they visited Umar in Medina. And when they went to the house of Umar, they found a line there. People are going to go see the Khalifa, right? And in that line are Bilal and Suhaib al-Rumi and Ibn Mas'ud and all of these that they consider to be low. And when the secretary comes out and he sees all the people there, so he calls number one in line is Bilal ibn Abi Rabah. And then he calls the other Badriyun, one after the other. And Abu Sufyan says to Suhail, I have never seen a day like this before. We are here. And you have to realize who were these people, right? If Quraysh had kings, these are the kings of Quraysh. These are the MPs of Quraysh, right? And who is Bilal and who are these other people? So Abu Sufyan says, I have never seen, and they're all now Muslim, but still, it takes a while to get to that stage. So Abu Sufyan says that I have never seen a day like this. We are here. And these abid, these slaves and these, whoever they were, they have been given precedence over us. Now look at what Suhail says. And you see the iman of Suhail. SubhanAllah, where was he? Even in the incident of Hudaybiyah, how harsh he was, we will see. How harsh he was. But deep down inside, there was some good. And when eventually the Prophet ﷺ managed to get to that good by the help of Allah, that good overwhelmed him. What did he say to Abu Sufyan? He said, I can see the anger in your faces. And there was a group from Mecca there. I can see the anger in your faces. But if you wish to be angry, then be angry at yourselves. For they, Bilal and others, were called to Islam, and we too were called to Islam. Same time. They raced forward, and we lagged behind. And the blessings that they obtained in racing forward, listen to this, are far more than the honor of them entering the door of Umar before us now. You understand this point, right? In the eyes of Allah, the blessings they have by having accepted Islam are much more than now they're entering the door of Umar and then we're still waiting in line. Be jealous at that good rather than the good of entering the door of Umar. Imagine now, Suhail, we really see iman from the heart of Suhail now coming, right? And then he told them that if you cannot catch up with them, the least you can do is to exert yourself in jihad fi sabilillah, so that at least we can try to come close. And saying this, eventually he basically signed up to join the army that was fighting the Romans in Syria, and he eventually died a shaheed fighting in Syria. And again, that's an amazing story of Sohail Ibn Amar. Who was he? Where was he? And now what did he become? So out of the converts of the conquest of Mecca, Sohail is considered to be the most, or of the most, towards the most righteous and the most zahid amongst them. Now,